The Exorcist, 1973, wasn't just another supernatural horror classic. For 50 years, people have talked about its power to terrify. But behind that pea soup and spinning head lies a story the studio never wanted you to know about. A version of the film so intense, so physically and psychologically damaging, they locked away entire scenes and tried to bury the truth of what happened on that cursed set. These are 12 of the creepiest facts about The Exorcist, and hidden in them is the shocking truth that the studio didn't just want to cut a movie, they wanted to contain a nightmare. Number 1. The famous spiderwalk scene was originally cut from the theatrical release. You know the one. Regan possessed and contorted scuttles down the stairs like a spider with blood pouring from her mouth. It's one of the most chilling images in horror history, but for over 2 decades, nobody saw it. Director William Friedkin filmed it, but he thought it revealed too much too soon. He wanted to build the dread slowly, so he cut it. That's the trick. He buried his own masterpiece shot. The scene was literally locked away in a vault at Warner Brothers Forgotten. The consequence? A generation of moviegoers saw a different, less explicit film. It wasn't until the 2000 re-release, The Version You've Never Seen, that Friedkin finally added it back in. He decided modern audiences were ready for it. What most people don't realize is that the scene was almost lost forever. The film negative had started to decay. They had to digitally restore it just to save it. And that leads to number 2. Number 2. The set was cursed. Or at least that's what everyone started to believe. During production, a mysterious fire broke out and destroyed the entire McNeil family house set. Everything was gone. The cause? Unknown. But here's the scary part. The only thing that survived the blaze completely unharmed was Regan's bedroom, the room where all the horror happened. It was like the fire itself was too afraid to go in there. The truth is, 9 people died associated with the film before it was even released. Actors, crew members, they just kept having accidents. Some crew members claimed they felt a real cold presence on set, a sense of dread that wasn't from the script. The studio panicked. They even brought in a priest, Father Thomas Birmingham, to bless the set and pray for the cast and crew. It didn't stop the weirdness. The consequence was a movie steeped in real-life fear. The actors weren't just acting scared. They were living in a state of constant anxiety. And this is where it gets weird. Number 3, the vomit was real. Well, not real vomit, but it was real stuff being thrown. For the projectile vomiting scene, the special effects team didn't use CGI. They used a simple, disgusting recipe, pea soup. But not just any pea soup. They used Anderson's pea soup, a thick, chunky brand. They'd load it into a special pump attached to a nozzle hidden in the bed. Then, on cue, they'd blast it at actor Jason Miller, who played Father Karras. The stuff was cold, sticky, and smelled awful. Miller had no idea how much was coming. That's the trick. His reaction of shock and disgust is 100% real. They had to do multiple takes, drenching him over and over again. The consequence? Miller got sick, not from pea soup, but from the sheer shock of it. The crew had to keep cleaning him up between takes, the air thick with the smell of cold soup and sweat. It was a physical ordeal, not a performance. And that leads to number 4. Number 4. The film was given an X rating for blasphemy. When the MPAA Ratings Board first saw The Exorcist, they didn't just object to the violence or the gore. They objected to the language, specifically the blasphemous things the demons said to the priests. They gave it an X rating. A death sentence for a mainstream film. The studio went into a full-blown panic. This was their big horror movie for Christmas, and it was about to be banned for most theaters, so Friedkin went back and made cuts. He trimmed some of the most graphic dialogue. He even removed a shot where Regan's head spins 360 degrees, thinking it was too much. But the board still said no. What were they afraid of? The truth is, they were scared of the religious controversy. They didn't want to be seen as endorsing blasphemy. Friedkin had to fight, arguing it was a story of good versus evil. Finally, after more edits and an appeal, he won his R rating. But the version we saw was a compromise, a tamer version of Friedkin's original vision. And that leads to number 5. Number 5. Linda Blair was injured by her harness. The scene where Regan is thrashing on the bed, fighting off the priests, that wasn't a dummy. That was 14-year-old Linda Blair strapped into a special harness with a leather belt and a metal rig. The rig was yanked and pulled by crew members off camera to make her body convulse violently. It was supposed to be safe. It wasn't. During one take, the harness tightened around her waist, causing a permanent injury to her spine. The pain was real. The screaming wasn't just acting. Here's the problem. They were so focused on getting the perfect shot, they pushed a young actress too far. The consequence was a lifetime of back pain for Blair. She even had to undergo surgery years later directly related to the injuries she sustained on that set. They created a terrifying scene, but the cost was real. It's a dark what if that hangs over the film's legacy. And this is where it gets weird. Number 6. The refrigerated set was real ice. To create the freezing cold breath of the demon, the crew didn't just use CGI or a simple effect. They built a massive refrigeration system around the entire set. They lowered the temperature to just below freezing. Then they pumped in water vapor, which condensed into a thick cold fog. The actors could see their breath. They could feel the ice-cold air in their lungs. Max von Sydow, who played the elderly Father Merrin, was wearing thin, fake latex makeup. The sweat from his skin would turn to ice inside the mask. The truth is, the actors were genuinely cold, miserably cold. It was a physical ordeal. That's the trick. Friedkin didn't fake the cold. He made his actors endure it. The consequence was a performance that feels authentic. The shivering, the discomfort, it's all real, but it was also dangerous. Von Sydow risked hypothermia every day on that set, all for a few seconds of creepy, icy breath on film. And that leads to number 7. Number 7, the demon's voice was a combination of multiple sources. That deep, guttural, terrifying voice coming from Reagan. It wasn't just one person, it was a cocktail of sounds. Actress Mercedes McCambridge provided the main demonic vocals, but to get that gravelly, inhuman quality, director Friedkin had her do some wild things. He made her eat raw eggs, drink whiskey, and smoke cigarettes until her voice was raw and destroyed. But that wasn't all. They also layered in sounds of pigs squealing and even audio of a friend of Friedkin's who was dying of cancer. The truth is, they used real pain and real animal sounds to create a monster. The consequence is one of the most iconic and unsettling vocal performances in cinema history. A voice built from suffering, but it also led to a huge fight. McCambridge was originally uncredited for her work. She had to fight the studio and the directors to get the recognition she deserved. They tried to bury her contribution, and that leads to number 8. Number 8. The original author hated the movie. William Peter Blatty wrote the novel The Exorcist. He also wrote the screenplay, but he hated what director William Friedkin did with it. He thought Friedkin was too focused on the shocks and the gore, and not enough on the faith and the theological themes. He wanted a more spiritual film. Friedkin wanted a brutal, in-your-face horror experience. The two clashed constantly on set. Blatty would write a beautiful, thoughtful scene, and Friedkin would cut it for something more visceral. The consequence was a film that was a massive commercial hit, but which its own creator felt was a betrayal of his vision. For years, Blatty talked about a smoother, less theatrical cut he preferred, a version that was buried by Friedkin's style. This tension between the writer and the director is what makes the film so fascinating. It's a battle between faith and fury right there on the screen. And that leads to number 9. Number 9. A stuntman almost died filming The Fall. The scene where Father Karras throws himself out of Reagan's bedroom window to save her soul? That wasn't a dummy falling down those steep stone stairs. That was a real person. Stuntman Chuck Waters performed the fall himself. He was attached to a hidden wire, but the stunt was incredibly dangerous. He had to time his jump perfectly to avoid hitting the stone steps head first. One wrong move, and he could have been killed or paralyzed. Here's the scary part. On the first take, the wire rig malfunctioned. He fell harder and faster than planned. He slammed into the stairs, cracking several ribs. The pain was excruciating, but they got the shot. The truth is, Friedkin kept that take in the movie. The fall you see is the fall where the stuntman got seriously hurt. It's a moment of real brutal danger captured on film. The consequence was a perfect, terrifying shot that sells the sacrifice of the character, but it came at the cost of a man's well-being. And that leads to number 10. Number 10. The movie's marketing was a masterstroke of fear. The studio didn't just sell a movie, they sold a psychological event. The posters didn't show the monster, they just showed a simple, chilling image. Father Merrin arriving at the house bathed in a single beam of light, under the tagline, "The scariest film of all time." They were telling you how to feel. They were challenging your courage. Reports say people were fainting and having heart attacks in theaters. The studio didn't deny these stories, they encouraged them. They created a sense of forbidden danger around the film. The consequence was a cultural phenomenon. People had to see what all the fuss was about. They had to test their own nerve. The truth is, the marketing was as brilliant as the film itself. It created a legend before most people had even seen a single frame. And this is where it gets weird. Number 11, the subliminal face. You probably didn't see it, but it's there. Friedkin inserted quick subliminal flashes of a white-faced demon into the film. One appears during the exorcism itself, a quick ghostly image that flashes on screen for only a few frames. It's so fast your conscious mind doesn't register it, but your subconscious does. It's a trick to make you feel uneasy without knowing why. The truth is, this is a classic horror technique, but Friedkin used it to perfection. He wanted to get under the audience's skin to plant a seed of fear that they couldn't quite explain. The consequence is a film that feels deeply unsettling on a primal level. You feel the presence of evil even when you can't see it. That's the trick. He was scaring you with something you weren't even aware you were seeing. And that leads to the final, most disturbing fact. Number 12. The studio buried the original ending, and this is the one that connects everything. The version of The Exorcist that became a legend was not the version Friedkin originally wanted. After Karras's death, his friend Father Dyer finds the demon's necklace and walks away with Detective Kinderman. It's a quiet, somber ending, but Friedkin filmed another one. In it, Dyer and Kinderman meet on the steps of the church and share a smile, a sign of hope and friendship. The studio hated it. They thought it was too soft after the horror of the exorcism. They wanted to end on a note of lingering dread, so they made Friedkin cut it. They buried the hopeful ending. The truth is, the studio wasn't just editing a film, they were controlling its message. They decided that for the audience, there should be no easy comfort, no happy ending. And that's the shocking truth hidden in these facts. The studio's interference, the censorship, the marketing lies, it was all to create a specific, unrelenting experience of terror. They didn't just bury a scene. They buried the film's own moment of peace because they knew fear was a better product. The Exorcist became a legend not just because it was scary, but because it almost fell apart at every turn. It was a chaotic battle between a director's obsessive vision and a studio's desire to control the chaos. The injuries, the fires, the fights, the censorship, it all bled into the final product, making it feel more real and more dangerous than any other film. They didn't just make a movie, they waged war on what was considered acceptable, and in doing so, they created a masterpiece of terror that still holds us in its grip today. Thanks for watching. Hit like, drop a comment with your favorite fact, and subscribe for more creepy movie secrets.